Every payday you hear the same advice: work more hours, earn more money. That's the whole formula, repeated so often it starts to feel like law. So you say yes to the Saturday shift again. The third weekend in a row, 40 extra hours tacked onto this month alone. Same base rate, same throbbing calves by the time Sunday night rolls around. Nobody ever mentions the other rule, the one that has nothing to do with your weekends. It's been sitting quietly inside your banking app the whole time, completely ignored, doing precisely nothing while you sleep, and yet already worth more than every single hour you just gave up. This is the net worth pivot. By 10 the next morning, you're back at your desk at the regional insurance office, headset around your neck, when your coworker Jennifer swings her second monitor toward you, beaming. She's showing off the lease on her brand new SUV, $549 a month, 3 years, 0 down. I just felt like I deserved it, she says, leaning back with a satisfied shrug. You nod because you know exactly what that sentence costs to say, and even more painfully, what it costs to actually mean it. You both earn close to $58,000 a year. Same clock, same break room coffee, same 3% raise memo every January. And yet this one choice, a vehicle, a monthly payment, a signature, makes it look like she's lapping you. For a moment under the fluorescent break room lights, it almost feels true. Then you're back at your desk, phone unlocked, banking app open again. The same one from the grocery aisle. Except this time you don't close it after the checking balance appears. You keep scrolling. Savings, $340. The retirement account you opened when you were hired 18 months ago with a 4% company match now sits around $2,100. Nothing else. No outside investments. You total it up crudely, then more carefully on the calculator, and land just under $2,500. That number lands differently than your paycheck ever does. Your paycheck is currency that flows straight through you. It appears, it evaporates, it goes to rent and gas and overpriced cereal. This number is what's left after everything else has already taken its cut. This is what you actually keep. You think about Jennifer's SUV again, but now you're running different arithmetic. That lease costs $549 a month for something that loses value with every mile she drives it. Your retirement contribution is $180 a month, automatic, invisible, and it's the only bill you own that makes you wealthier for paying it. Nobody swings their monitor around to show off a retirement balance. Nobody posts a screenshot of an investment account. But one of these numbers grows relentlessly, and the other starts depreciating the instant it rolls off the lot. Later, scrolling the fine print of your plan, you notice the combined contribution ceiling, yours and your employer's, is $72,000 a year. You're nowhere near maximizing it. But for the first time, simply being in the game feels like the point, while that lease suddenly feels like a costume you're glad you never tried on. That discovery feels like progress, until Sunday night, laptop on your knees, a bowl of reheated pasta going cold beside you, when you finally open a credit card statement you've been avoiding for 3 weeks. Balance, $6,380. APR, 23.99%. It built up quietly, a security deposit you didn't have cash for, a dental bill in February, a plane ticket for a cousin's wedding you couldn't skip. Nothing reckless in the moment, it just felt like living. Your neighbor Marcus, who works nights, pays only the minimum and shrugs it off. It's like $150 a month. That's nothing, he told once by the mailboxes. You nodded along then. But tonight you run the numbers he never bothered to. At that minimum, the balance takes over 9 years to clear and costs nearly $6,900 in interest. More than the original debt itself, just for the privilege of ignoring it sooner. You realize this card is the mirror image of your retirement account. Same compounding, opposite direction, one builds, one destroys. So instead of the minimum, you calculate a real number. $6,380, 18 months, $354. It means canceling a subscription, packing lunches, skipping a wedding, but it cuts the interest costs from $69 to about $1,350. You set up the autopay and feel dread more than relief because $354 is real money from an already stretched paycheck. 3 weeks later, your car's warning light stops blinking and stays on. It dies in the parking lot. The shop wants $612 before releasing it. You have $340 in savings, the same $340 you had 3 weeks ago, since every spare dollar has been going to the card. You're short $272, and the only place to get it is the same credit card you just started paying down. Watching that charge go through, it stops being theoretical. This is the moment you understand why 6 months of expenses isn't just advice. It's a wall that wasn't built yet. Your coworker Priya keeps 4 months of expenses in a high-yield account, calling it boring on purpose. It doesn't sound boring anymore. Your monthly essentials run about $2,100, so 6 months is $12,600. A huge gap from your $340. But you don't need to build it all at once. That night you open a separate savings account and move in $50. Not the wall yet, just the first brick. Underneath it all, a quieter question lingers. What is your actual earning power worth if nothing ever breaks? Monday, your manager gives you the same 3% raise as always. $48K becomes $59,740, about $40 extra a month after tax, less than what you're now sending to savings. Priya mentions she does freelance claims work on the side, using the same skills from her day job. It's not extra work, she says. It's the same work, just not capped by what my boss decides I'm worth. Your salary has a ceiling someone else sets. Your skills don't. You build a freelance profile that night. Days later, a small firm offers $22 an hour for evening file work. Not a fortune, but money with no ceiling. You notice you're faster on these files than at your day job simply because nobody's watching the clock. Your laptop screen is too small for the work, so you buy a $189 refurbished monitor. Not a treat, a tool. By month's end, between the raise and freelance work, you've added about $340 that Robert, your manager, never touched. 6 weeks later, that freelance connection turns into a real offer. Tiny startup, Fieldstone claims, 4 people, no office, founded by a former adjuster named Renata, who's building software to automate the exact work you've been doing by hand for 2 years. The offer is $52,000, a pay cut, plus 75% equity vesting over 4 years. You slide the offer across the lunch table to Priya. She reads it twice. That's a pay cut, she says, the same thing that's kept you up since Tuesday. But you realize an asymmetric bet isn't a blind guess dressed up as confidence. It's a trade where you can name the downside in advance. Here, the downside is about $740 in lost salary for up to 4 years if it never vests. Survivable, a bruise, not a fracture. The upside has no ceiling. Renata mentions, almost offhand, that her own former boss took equity like this and later sold the company for just under $4 million, buying a home on a lake outside Austin. You calculate your coast number, the point where investments alone, compounding, could eventually cover your expenses without more input. At $2,100 in expenses, roughly $126,000. You're nowhere near it, but for the first time you can see a path where equity, not another 3% raise, closes that gap. You accept the offer at 11:40 p.m., not because you're certain, but because you finally understand certainty was never really available anywhere. Even the safe job ceiling was never guaranteed either. 5 months into Fieldstone, riding back from a client meeting with Renata, her phone lights up. Her father calling. She lets it go to voicemail. He's 70 in March, she says quietly. I still haven't asked him where the will is. That night, you realize you don't know if your own father has a will either. For the first time, something depends on you existing. You look into term life insurance. At roughly 10 to 12 times your $60,000 income, that's $600K, $720K in coverage, costing about $28 million for a 20-year term, less than that monitor cost. You also set up a basic will online for under $200. You call your father that Sunday, circling the subject before finally asking directly, where's the paperwork? Is there a will? He tells you it's in the fireproof box in the garage and sounds relieved you finally asked. Nothing about that call felt like winning. It felt like maintenance, the unglamorous kind nobody screenshots. But maintenance is what keeps a foundation standing after it's built. Somewhere between the alternator, the equity, and the fireproof box, you stopped us and anxiously checking a shrinking balance in the grocery aisle. Not because the numbers got easy, but because you finally know which ones are worth carrying. You still check your accounts most mornings, but the dread is gone. It's just habit now. The sedan still ticks on cold mornings. The equity still hasn't vested. Tomorrow will still ask something of you today hasn't finished paying for. But you're no longer doing the math to survive. You're doing it because you finally know what you're protecting. And you find yourself wondering what your own father never asked himself. All those years of quietly carrying the weight alone. Because the real shift was never the job, the side income, or even paying off the debt. It was the moment you stopped treating your future as someone else's responsibility and started building it yourself. One brick, one payment, one conversation at a time.